Now, we will discuss the case of Isabel, a young woman obsessed with a desire to be a mother, who orchestrated a macabre plan to take the baby of her best friend, described as a rare, solitary, and not very sociable person. Few knew Isabel Marcos deeply, as she tended to isolate herself, and no one could have imagined that she would be capable of articulating such a perverse plan. How was it possible that no one noticed she was actually faking a pregnancy? What was the involvement of her parents in this context? Currently, the case of Isabel Marcos Maceras, a 24-year-old woman residing in Mijo, La Coruña, is remembered with impact in criminal memory. Isabel was known for her closeness to Vanessa Lorente, a 22-year-old single mother who had given birth to her son, Daniel, shortly before the tragic events. Vanessa was a loving mother facing the challenge of raising her son alone, while Isabel, desperately longing for motherhood, began to face problems in her personal life, including a marriage that contributed to her dissatisfaction with her desire for motherhood, which turned into an obsession. Despite the friendship they shared, Isabel could not contain her envy and began to fake a pregnancy, intensifying her desire to have a child. Isabel began to plan how she could carry out her scheme, studying Vanessa's movements and waiting for the right moment to act. On August 13, 2002, Isabel invited Vanessa to a cafe where they met for an apparently normal conversation, but which concealed a dark plan. After spending some time at the cafe, Isabel convinced Vanessa to accompany her to her residence, claiming they wanted to share more moments together. During the drive home, they stopped at a gas station where Isabel offered Vanessa a juice that had been prepared with a sedative. Although Isabel had never shown signs of malicious intentions, this premeditated action was a crucial step in her plan. Vanessa, trusting her friend, accepted the juice and began to feel dizzy shortly after consuming it, an effect that Isabel had carefully planned. This moment was decisive, as Vanessa's weakness was essential for Isabel to execute her plan. The idea of using a sedative to incapacitate her friend reveals a cold and calculated strategy. Feeling vulnerable, Vanessa was led by the trust she placed in Isabel, allowing herself to be taken to a more private location where Isabel could carry out her malicious objective. This act of betrayal highlights the extent to which Isabel was willing to go in her obsession to become a mother. Once they arrived at Isabel's house, the plot unfolded with devastating consequences. Vanessa was in a state of vulnerability due to the administration of a sedative, at a critical moment when Isabel, using a blunt object, presumably a hammer, struck Vanessa on the head, causing instant death. After committing the crime, Isabel not only murdered her friend but also devised a plan to hide the body to avoid the discovery of the crime. She decided to bury Vanessa in her parents' garden, located in Monfero. Simultaneously, Isabel began to devise a plan to pretend to be the mother of a baby, whose identity she changed from Daniel to Jose Andres, presenting him as her own son. To do this, she acquired clothes for the baby and made efforts to imitate the life of a loving and dedicated mother. She went to the extreme of sedating Daniel to maintain the appearance that he was a calm and easy-to-handle baby during the first weeks after the crime. Isabel lived with the baby in her parents' house, where she and her husband, Angel Gonzalez, presented the child as part of their family. The situation, although strange, was not questioned, making her own family complicit. Isabel's supposed father even helped cover up the crime by not questioning the child's condition or Vanessa's absence. The lack of action by Isabel's family regarding the situation generated controversy in the case, as no inquiries were made about the pregnancy or the child's origin, evidencing complicity in covering up the crime committed by Isabel. Isabel Marcos, in turn, adapted to her new life as a mother, seeking to present an idealized image to her neighbors. The situation appeared stable, allowing her to maintain her facade. Over a period of a month, as time passed, inconsistencies began to arise, leading neighbors to raise suspicions and spread rumors. This culminated in an anonymous tip to the authorities, alerting them to a possible irregularity. Suspicions about Isabel intensified, forcing her to create lies and fictitious narratives about her pregnancy and Daniel's birth. The psychological pressure and fear of discovery began to impact her behavior, but she struggled to remain calm and continue with her life as a mother. Vanessa's disappearance was reported on August 16th, which triggered a massive search. Vanessa's family was perplexed by her disappearance and concerned about her situation. Thus, the police launched an investigation that caught the media's attention. Isabel tried to divert suspicion, but the circumstances led to an inevitable outcome. The anonymous tip alerted the civil guard about Isabel and the baby. On September 20, 2002, the police located and detained her in the city where she lived with the baby. When initially interrogated, Isabel claimed that the child was her nephew and tried to maintain this version, but the evidence began to pile up against her. The authorities began to gather evidence and testimonies that contradicted Isabel's statements. The inconsistencies in her narrative became evident, and the pressure on the civil guard intensified. After receiving additional information and testimonies, they decided to proceed with collecting evidence that would eventually lead to Isabel's arrest. The investigation culminated in a DNA test, which revealed that Isabel was not Daniel's biological mother. With the pressure mounting, Isabel finally confessed after 72 hours under police coercion and revealed the location of Vanessa's body, buried in her parents' garden. The police found the remains, which confirmed the confession, revealing the horror of what had transpired. In 2004, Isabel Marcos was brought to trial for the death of Vanessa Lorente. During the judicial process, evidence was presented that demonstrated how she planned and executed the crime, as well as the role of her family in covering it up. The prosecutor requested a 28-year prison sentence, arguing that Isabel acted with treachery and premeditation. She was ultimately sentenced to 28 years of imprisonment. During the trial, it was determined that she not only murdered her friend but also committed the act of kidnapping by taking the baby, which resulted in a severe sentence. The case attracted national attention, raising questions about how someone could perpetrate such a heinous act against a friend. The sentence was handed down in 2004, and the 28-year penalty was considered an appropriate reflection of the crime's gravity, despite the defense's pleas for clemency. The courtroom was a place where the intense emotions of Vanessa's family were palpable, as well as the impact of the crime on the community. Maria Maceras, Isabel's mother, was initially sentenced to 25 years in prison, 15 years as an accomplice in the case, 8 years for the crime of illegal detention, and 2 years as a necessary cooperator in the crime of presumption of birth. The Supreme Court, however, later ruled that there was no conclusive evidence beyond her daughter's testimony, leading to her acquittal as an accomplice in the crime. The final sentence she received was 10 years in prison, the same duration as her father, Jose Carlos, who was convicted for helping Marcos pour cement over Vanessa's grave. The latter claimed he was unaware of what was happening, stating that his daughter informed him about a motorbike that had been buried, revealing that he worked to exhume the young woman's body under the agent's orders. The first to appear was a dog that was under Vanessa's body. Isabel then explained that the dog was used to justify the odor emanating from the location. Finally, Jose Carlos was convicted of the crime of illegal detention and as a necessary cooperator in the presumption. Isabel's husband, Ángel González, told everyone that the baby was his, claiming they had the child together. He even shared this information with Isabel's mother, who, despite having serious doubts, ended up believing him. Ángel facilitated the cement that Isabel used. He wrote a note saying he was going to visit, but was detained by the civil guard. Ángel received a 10-year prison sentence for the same crimes his father-in-law was convicted of. Years after this event, Isabel became a mother, culminating her obsession with Vanessa Lorente's story in 2009. She had a daughter with another inmate during her time in prison. Currently, she is free and regularly visits her parents' house in Monfero. She has already served 22 of her 28-year sentence and has been on parole for just over 2 years. The case of Isabel and Marcos serves as a grim reminder of how human desires can lead to destructive tragedies. It not only affected the families involved, but also resonated within the community of Monfero. The story of betrayal, friendship, and crime left a deep mark that still lingers in the memory of those who knew Vanessa. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more impactful stories. Every subscription and comment significantly helps me continue developing content. Thank you for following my work, and I hope to see you again in the next video.